Hello. Hi, everyone. So, welcome to the Techy guys. It's Friday, so this is our first attempt, first attempt to actually move from the usual uh, offline talks that we are doing. So now the Bridge 360 and the Bridge 360 Academy will now be doing this Techy Fridays um, every Friday. So let's um, let's start with introducing what Bridge 360 is. So, well, for one, Bridge 360 is a social tech enterprise, and we have been established under the existing laws of the Philippines, and we have been around for 1.5 years now. Yay! So it aims to bridge the company aims to bridge the gap between different social strata on one hand, and between public and private sectors on the other hand. We also aim to bridge these gaps through hardware and software innovations using talent and resources here in the Philippines. Now, in the process, we aim to become a force within the emerging markets among the ASEAN members. So, um, well, what we do is that the information it's basically information technology services that we do, and it's more on the web and mobile applications, some AI tools that we are now doing some R&Ds, and also 3D printing. So yeah, well, we basically target small and medium enterprises, so NGOs and startups. So they are our primary target consumers and clients. And yeah, so because the idea is that we want to help them. Um, well, the idea of becoming a dev shop for the people started when it was really a very frustrating idea. We're in creating a mobile application for a nation building app and a good governance app for the Philippines had to be postponed because of just because of money matters. No, uh, and also this became one of also the frustrations of the Bridge 360 members, wherein SMEs, startups, and NGOs with a noble cause cannot join the digital transformation because of the lack of assistance from IT experts, or it's really the high cost basically of that's the first hurdle, I think, or we've noticed that it's the high cost of application development. So um, and the and since there's a high cost of application development, and there's also that vision of the future that we are predicting, that our team had predicted that by 2050 there might be the rise of the artificial general intelligence as well as environmental crisis globally. Now, what Bridge 360 sees is that how are we going to make sure that no one is left behind? Now, Bridge 360 Academy is our academic arm, so that we are also giving this information, insights that we are learning as we go along with Bridge 360, as we go along with interacting with a lot of tech guys, tech experts out there, and also, of course, learning more information every day in terms of the researches all around the globe. So yeah, we're trying to digest all of that, and we will make sure that here in in TGIF, or Techy Guys, it's Friday, it will be discussed, and we can hopefully we can have this epistemic community wherein we are going to encourage more people to join the idea of having the digital transformation and making sure that the Philippines will not be left behind in this battle for the IR 4.0 as well as IR, or Industrial Revolution 5.0. All right, so let's start. For the first session, we have Prince Javier, my co-founder. and he is the Chief
Hello.
Innovation of Bridge360. So he will be discussing the first topic, which is learning how to learn. So we will start from basic. The idea of the TGIF is to start with all of the basic, and yeah, and I think Prince would actually be able to give you some overview of what the TGIF will be as well. Go ahead, Prince.
All right. Thanks, Rage. Okay. Before I start, I just want to discuss some of the projects we've done under Bridge360 Academy. So as Rage mentioned, Bridge360 Academy is the education arm of Bridge360. This is where we like to share ideas. We like to get ideas from other people and so on. So we've had data milk tea before. So this is where we invite data scientists, data practitioners to share their projects and the interesting things that you can do with data science. And of course, over milk tea. So everyone will be given free milk tea, which is everyone's favorite drink. And this is our learning how to learn webinar, but we really started with an offline workshop, learning how to learn. And we've had great reception there. Uh, so we had some participants and they really loved the workshop. So we decided for our first webinar, mag-start tayo with this learning how to learn. All right, so I'll jump straight to it.
Maybe I can add more. So
Sure.
from the learning how to learn sessions, we will be proceeding to discussing mental models and all of the types of mental models that you'd want us to share with you. We will discussing a lot of most of them, at least the most important parts, because we believe that it's one of the foundations that we should have, not just for the tech side, not just as engineers, but as people. Yeah, so we the critical thinking side, the mental models that we have, exploring that and being aware of what we have as mental models will be able to help us all propel as a nation, I think, and as citizens of the Philippines, that we can propel our nation to become a better one, since we will have that capacity to think critically, to think systemic in a systemic and we can now design solutions for our country. Yeah.
Agree, super agree with that. All right, so for this webinar, it's gonna be learning how to learn. For the next webinars, we'll have mental models. So why did we decide to start with learning how to learn? So we just want to contextualize everything by starting with this video about Industry 4.0. All right, just a second, guys. I think hindi masyadong rinig yung audio. Okay, I'll try to restart. Uh-huh. This is getting in the way. Just a sec. Oops.
Yeah, better. Sige pa.
Where everything is changing.
idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans? The original Industrial Revolution was driven by the discovery that you could use steam engines to do all kinds of interesting things.
But that was followed by additional revolutions for electricity and computers and communications technology. We're now in the early stages of the fourth industrial revolution, which is bringing together digital, physical, and biological systems.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
With the ability to visualize brain activity, for example, through a simple consumer-based EEG device, it gives us access to ourselves in ways that we've never before thought possible. It unlocks the black box of this brain and enables us to really, truly be able to realize an identity that is aspirational.
There's now a scientific foundation for the effects of mindfulness on the brain, on the genome, on biological aging. And when the human being does know itself, then you get the potential for a new renaissance that restructures itself in terms of our relationship to life, our relationship to the planet, our relationship to work.
We need a different economic model. By that I don't mean capitalism versus communism. What I'm talking about is a shift in the system along the lines of the two big changes that happened in the 20th century, Keynesianism, with a much greater focus on health and education and the role of government working with business, and then a reaction against that in late century to neoliberalism, where the focus was on free markets, freedom of the individual, and getting governments out of the way. We need to shift to a new system that will allow us to meet the basic needs of every human on the planet, that will live within planetary means, that will be fairer, and that will be focused as its key goal, not on growth per se, but on maximizing human well-being. And history tells us that a value shift is triggered by creation of a new story about how we want to live.
I see the circular economy as something which fits very closely with mankind's goal to be innovative and creative and to always progress. We can use asset tracking, we can use IT, we can use 3D printing to enable this different economic model to recover materials, feed them back into the economy, and really to decouple growth from the resource constraints we have.
The reason we live in cities is not different today than it was 10,000 years ago. Even if we have got networks connecting us, we still want to have places where we meet in person. So this means the place where we work and the place where we live are much closer to each other. A city where we don't need to have big supply chains in order to produce things, where many things can be sourced locally thanks to 3D printing and robotics. So if we're able to do something to transform cities, to make it more efficient, then the impact can be huge.
Think about the prospect of getting rid of plastics. We must not only be inspired or informed by nature, but actually use natural organisms with which to design products and building parts. Only instead of varying material properties, we're varying biological functionality.
Design is critical today because it's the first signal of human intention. So the question of adding quality to quantity, it isn't a matter of simply circulating things that are potentially toxic. It's circulating things that are safe and healthy for all generations. So the goal is no longer, I want to be less bad, less monotonous, less unsafe, less unjust. It's really about a diverse, safe, healthy, and just world with clean air, clean water, clean soil, clean energy.
Together we are fighting to preserve our fragile climate from irreversible damage and devastation of unthinkable proportions.
If we think about the original Industrial Revolution, it was an energy revolution. I like to think of it as a kind of bookending of a period in human history during which we used fossil fuels, and it worked very well for us for a long time. But now we have to bring that to an end. We have energy technologies that can power our civilization: solar, wind, biomass. So then the question is, well, how do we get grid integration? Maybe the wind is blowing in Denmark, the sun is shining in Germany, and now you can move that electricity through an integrated grid. You can supply energy to everyone who needs it, and you can supply energy at all times.
Walking around, you do see different stuff as far as like the body marriage line. They use a lot of things that help them lift up and move things to the car. You just sit there and, program something, and if it has its own set mind to go ahead and do everything. And as humans, we just come in and take the extra steps to help the technology.
It's not the cure-all for everything. There's definitely a lot of things where people perform the operation better, but certainly for the right applications, robotics are a huge improvement for the process.
The prediction of 5 million jobs lost by 2020 to technology is serious, but it's not the main question. Construction, manufacturing, services, public health and education, these industries will still exist. The main question is, what will be the future of work? How will we define work? How will we share the wealth?
From the viewpoint of the labor or jobs, now we really need new education or new training.
We're working with World in Motion and First Robotics, trying to encourage students from third grade all the way up through the end of high school. We had students make sailboats, and then we had them race them, and so they could see how quickly they could move. And they immediately went back and started to say, "Oh, I saw what happened. I'm going to go change this or that." And that was third graders.
I just given a prize to a kid, 18 years old, that has discovered something really very, very unique. Came up with how to get better productivity and better yields for seeds of corn. And so he basically came with the idea that if you would perforate these seeds, you would get more food. And you think about it and say, but he didn't go to university. So how does he get all that knowledge? And he told me, I've been watching YouTube since the age of 12, and I'm so interested that I've seen everything about it. I've read everything about it. The world is really open to learning. The thing is, how do you give the incentive to your kids to do that?
It's this ability of digital technology to change outcomes, to truly empower people all over the world that can create a more equitable growth, because I think the world needs that.
Fourth industrial revolution has the potential to make inequalities visible and to make them less acceptable in the future, and hopefully to gather and garner political support to take the necessary decision to reduce the gap.
Humans have always been using tools, but because of the recent advances in technology, we're beginning to have machines that can augment us in all sorts of interesting ways.
I was the first person in the world to be able to voluntarily move my legs while stepping in a robot by exciting the nervous system using electrical stimulators directly onto the spine. We believe that a cure will be possible if enough of the right people have the will to fast track a cure for paralysis.
We take two things from the patient. First, we take a three-dimensional X-ray and we extract the three-dimensional data out of that so we can make a perfectly shaped puzzle piece. And then we also take a sample of fat tissue from the patient so that we can extract the stem cells out of those. And we use those stem cells with this three-dimensional scaffold that we fabricate. And after 3 weeks, we have a piece of living bone that's ready for implantation.
Being able to use genome editing to understand the genetic changes that lead to cancer, and technologies like drug delivery, getting molecules into particular types of cells. There's a lot of excitement about being able to move much more quickly on this disease.
One of the things that I think is so essential to free and open societies is freedom of thought. And up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotion, we have to create a space that enables people to think freely, to think divergent thoughts, to think creative thoughts. And in a society where people fear having those thoughts, the likelihood of being able to enjoy progress is significantly diminished.
We need to take responsibility at every level of society, from the individual and the personal to the institutional to the global, to adapt to these technological challenges and changes which are redefining what it means to be human, what it means to work, what it means to be completely embedded in this world.
People always ask me if I'm an optimist or a pessimist. The technology exists, but how do we get it and implement it at the scale we need at a price that people around the world can afford?
Even though we have everyday problems we have to solve, we have to find a way to lay the foundations for the innovations of tomorrow.
All right. All right. Thank you for watching that video with me and Rage. Okay, so that was longer than expected, but let's see. What's your takeaway from the Industry 4.0, Rage? Or anyone who'd like to share, please feel free to comment.
Well, okay. So, Industry 4.0 is actually what I took from there is that, well, contrary to the idea that since we're going to the industrial revolution, therefore it's gonna be like more on the metals, more on those like the usage of metals, more on infrastructure. But the thing that actually had an effect on me most is the idea that they said that actually Industry 4.0 should be helping us to have a cleaner air, cleaner water, and basically they're saying that it should help us have a more sustainable way of living if we're going towards the Industry 4.0 already, through the use of technology, through making sure that well, some of the things would be more efficient.
Right.
So yeah. How about you?
Yeah, so we wanted to contextualize tong webinar na to. And the thing is, yung pace of advancement ng technology, it's too fast, right? We have now 3D printers, we have artificial intelligence, and now connecting the human body to machines and so on. For example, what we're seeing ngayon is yung artificial intelligence. It could redefine what it means to work, or it could redefine the definition of work. Now that we have artificial intelligence that's becoming smarter and smarter and can do things that we humans can do. So the question now is, given this scenario, how do we adapt really quickly? So the advancement of technology is very fast, but our biological advancement is very slow, right? It took millions of years for us to evolve. How do we cope? So that is the context of this entire webinar. Is one thing to do that is to learn very fast. Learn as fast as you can. Eventually, you should expect na jobs will be constantly changing. That's my perspective. Na there's no single what's your career when you grow up. When you ask a kid now, what's your career or what do you want to be when you grow up? Because before, diba, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer. In the face of these advancing technologies, those will not be applicable anymore. So maybe the question should be, what are the 10 things you want to be in the future, or 20 things, because it's going to constantly change. And so a prerequisite for that is ability to learn very fast. And that's where we're coming from here. Now, I realize that I've taught a couple of college students before, and I realized that in the normal curriculum of schools, learning how to learn is not usually taught. It's like, okay, here's a topic, learn it. Or here's a book, basahin mo yan. And so on. Or here's math, study that. And if you don't get that, there's no analysis why. Why doesn't the student get it? So the perspective that we have is, what if we teach students how to learn? So it's like the analogy na teach a man, teach a person how to fish, and you feed that person for a lifetime, right? So it's like you teach a person, you teach a student how to learn, and that student will just learn it, learn anything, and be prepared for the next industrial revolution. Yep.
Correct. And I totally agree with the first two audience that actually gave some response. Like one for this one, mag-a-adjust given the experience of COVID-19 outbreak. Yeah, actually correct. So how do we now adapt as well with this COVID-19 outbreak that we had before? Nobody's thinking about it, of course, kasi wala namang nag-expect nito, right? But we saw that coming since there was this outbreak in Wuhan, but we were not really expecting anything from what adjustments should we do for the COVID-19. And another Facebook user said that the future is not what it used to be. Yes. Back then, driving cars should be the new reality, but data science takes it a step further by using biotechnology, which is definitely true. Um, well, we should be able to predict at a certain level, and I think through enough data we can predict. Um, so the changes in the future can be predicted through technology. And while we do that, we have to step back as well on how are we going to make sure that other people would also be able to predict the future. So to be able to do that, then the very first step again would be to actually learn how to learn. So that once they know how to learn, they now know how to move forward with their learnings, right? Be empowered with the learnings that they will have. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Rage. All right, so let's proceed. It's gonna be 5 things that we'll discuss in this webinar. First one is two modes of thinking: diffuse versus focused. The second one is memory hacks. How do you memorize faster and more? Third is thinking about thinking, or what they call metacognition. Tapos fourth is how do you organize your knowledge, and mind maps can help there. And 5 is the Feynman technique. So for some of our viewers, you might be familiar with these things. So this would be a refresher for you guys. Ang main reference natin will be A Mind for Numbers by Barbara Oakley. It's an interesting book. I recommend that you check that out. But we also included some things here that were not mentioned there. So this is from experience as well as from reading some materials, resources, and all that. Okay, so let's start with learning hack number 1, which is focus versus diffuse mode. And personally, this has helped me go through college and master's degree. So before I knew about this, I was actually doing it back in college pala. And then I stumbled upon it, and okay, so that's what it's called. And so now that I'm more aware of that, I'm more deliberate in using these 2 modes. And there's fewer frustrations. And you'll see why later. Okay, so, right, so we have our brain. And our brain has a lot of parts. And usually when we're talking about learning, we're talking about focus, right? Usually we say focus on learning, concentrate, right? We keep hearing that from our teachers, from our parents, concentrate. What happens when you concentrate is yung frontal part of your brain works, right? It works, it supercharges, it's very active, and it tries to focus. And that works for some tasks, but that doesn't work for other tasks. When does it work? It works if you're already familiar with the task. So your focus helps with doing your task that you're familiar with really fast. Parang ganun. But it doesn't help if you're not familiar with the task anymore. There's another mode of thinking that you have to use to do that. And the thing is, when we are learning a new material, usually people say focus, focus, concentrate. But that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. You have to go with another form of thinking, which is diffuse. Why? When you're focusing, okay, your mind is using a certain portion of your brain. So so if you can imagine, like your brain is a pinball machine, right? When you're focusing, so from here you may spring, tapos nag-bounce back. The pinball, which is this is yung analogy natin for a thought, is focused on this area, for example, because you're super duper focused, right? There. So if you look at the left side, can you see it? Here, you're focusing there, for example. However, what if the solution requires not these neurons in your brain? What if the solution requires the neurons here, right? So there's a certain combination of neurons that will able to solve certain problems. If you're focusing, it's like you know how to use a hammer, and you're using a hammer like you're focused on using the hammer to cut a piece of wood, when what you really need is lagare, right? A saw. So what you have to do is search your toolbox for other tools. So you don't focus on using one tool. You don't focus on using the hammer. You look for other tools, and that's where diffuse mode comes in. So dito sa right side, you can see diffuse mode allows the thought to bounce around more. Parang you're not just focused here, pero you're bouncing it around more. Okay, and the reason is you want to find your tools, the specific tool that you need to solve a particular problem. So in terms of the brain, you want to find that combination of neurons that will help us solve a problem. Now, how does diffuse mode work? Basically, you just allow your mind to rest. And when it's resting, your subconscious is actually still thinking of the problem. And that's the fun thing about it, because learning is not just about consciously thinking of the topic, right? Learning also involves allowing your mind to rest and think about the topic subconsciously. So maybe half of the time, allow it to think subconsciously in order for it to find the solution. Okay, so here are some more analogies to drive the point further. Focused mode is like you're using a microscope sa left. So when you're using a microscope, talaga nagdi-drill down ka into a particular object. However, you will not be able to see the bigger picture. You will practically forget about the bigger picture. When you're solving a problem, you're focusing too much on one aspect that you're forgetting to see the rest. Well, diffuse mode is looking at the map, looking at the big picture, looking at the forest. And that allows us to look at the search space of solutions. Right, so here's another analogy. So for example, nasa dark and you have a flashlight. You have two kinds of flashlights. So one is narrow and can reach long distances. The other one is more spread out, pero short lang yung distance. And you're supposed to find something. If you go straight doon sa narrow flashlight, you will have a hard time finding what you need kasi ang liit-liit lang nung area na nalalight niya at any one time. Okay, now that is why you need a flashlight that's more spread out. Hindi siya too focused but spread out so that you can see yung larger area around you. Now, if you're able to see, okay, so this is the path pala, this is the road. Now you can switch to the narrow flashlight and you'll be able to see longer. Pero now you know that you are pointing at the right direction. So focus mode is the narrow flashlight, and diffuse mode is the like short range pero widespread flashlight. Okay, so why does it work that way? Well, there is, in a way, a kind of analogy sa evolution there. And for example, I'll show you this video. Okay, so first off, what kind of bird is this? It's a woodpecker, right? Is it?
Yeah.
Right. So you notice some pattern. Tama. You notice the pattern of may ginagawa siya like pecking or using the beak, pecking against the wood. But at the same time, nagpo-pause siya from time to time. And one possible explanation is the bird is probably checking the surroundings for predators from time to time, possibly. Okay, so that's a possible evolutionary perspective. It's not only limited to birds. So you can see a lot of animals doing something, maybe eating, pausing, checking the surroundings, eating again. So they have to defend themselves because if they're eating, for example, they're very vulnerable to other predators. So that kind of pattern of focus, diffuse, is kind of ingrained into brains by evolution. All right. Now, I'd like to share another concept, which is the Einstellung effect. So it's the tendency for people to solve a problem using the first thing that comes to mind. So again, this is similar to what I showed earlier na you have a pinball machine na stuck lang siya in one part. What if the solution is in another part? Or maybe you know how to use a hammer, so you use a hammer for everything. Even kung gusto mong hatiin yung wood, you still use the hammer. Right? You are under the Einstellung effect in that case. So one way to get around that is to use diffuse mode. Stand back and like tell yourself, wait a minute, let's step back a little, let's reassess the situation. Okay. So I have a couple of people in my mind who does this problem solving, and then just they usually have just one solution in their mind for everything. Okay, so even high profile individuals are prone to this. So knowing this Einstellung effect should help us overcome it or avoid it.
Yeah. Actually, true. Parang ano lang yan eh. Like how do we solve people not following instructions or not following the instructions of the government or something like that? Okay, so the solution would be instill fear. And then the next solution would be instill fear again. Or another solution with a different problem, instill fear again. Something like that. Which is not something that will follow. That is something like it's following this Einstellung effect. Wherein, what's the first thing that comes in your mind, or what's the usual thing that you implement as a solution? So you want to implement that to all problems. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a very inefficient way to solve problems, right? And you know what? There's a saying na if you do something that doesn't work, non-verbatim, but if you do something that doesn't work over and over again, like that's madness, something like that, to that effect, right? So you have to stand back. Ano ba yung ginawa ko before, and why will I even keep doing that if it shows that it doesn't work? So for example, very obviously war on drugs. Like, let's just say it out there. It's one of those problems na paulit-ulit yung ginagawa ng government, and it's not gonna work, right? It's not gonna work.
Yeah,
And
it
there's
has
just a
been
lot
done.
of difficulties, right?
Yeah, it has been done in several countries already. Like in I think in Chile, na war on drugs din sila before, like several decades ago. Decades ago. So, kumbaga, it has been done by different countries, different timelines in our history of being humans, and yet it has been proven wrong, and there has been proven well, at least in their situation, it has been proven there are proven practices that was much more effective rather than the war on drugs that's being done right now.
Right. Okay, so some exercise. So this was originally meant as a workshop, but if you like to participate, we will be showing a couple of exercises. So prepare, get a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. All right.
Sure, I have mine.
Okay, so for example, don't worry, I'm not gonna ask some complicated maths or whatever, but just to show the effect of diffuse mode and focus mode. So you're given two triangles, try to make a square. 10 seconds. Okay, yeah, you can make a square like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. But what if I give you, I give you these four triangles? How can you make a square out of that? So you can just pause the video if you want to after the live feed. So, yep, think of a way to turn that into a square. Okay, so let's move forward. When you're solving a difficult problem, okay, you try to maximize this focused and diffuse mode pattern. Okay, so you have a problem, this one. Put hard focused effort into solving that. And if you're able to solve it, great. If you're not able to solve it, don't worry. Try to go to diffuse mode. So what that means is step back, take a break, wash the dishes if you want to take a bath. Just deliberately forget about the material, because your subconscious will take care of that for you. Now come back to the problem and try to solve it, and then rinse and repeat. Yeah, so that's how you will use yung focus and diffuse mode. All right. So, if you're familiar with Salvador Dali, well, if you're not familiar with Salvador Dali is a Spanish painter, and he's known for his dreamlike paintings. So, like this one, it's a painting with clocks na nagme-melt. It's very dreamlike, and it's very original, and it's actually what they call surrealist paintings. Now, how Salvador Dali apparently used diffuse and focus mode to come up with his paintings. So, paano niya ginagawa yun? What he does is apparently, what he paints are images between waking up and sleeping. So these are dreams within that transition, and that is very vivid for him. So what he does is, he would grab a spoon, tapos parang a metal plate, tapos he's gonna sleep, right? He's gonna sleep with the spoon in his hand. And then when he falls asleep, mababagsak niya yung spoon, tapos babagsak na sa metal plate and magigising siya. Right? So that is his way of going to diffuse mode. And that diffuse mode gives him all these ideas to come up with these paintings and become a very creative person. Right. So to recap, how does it work? So first, you try to solve a problem using focus mode. I mean, how can you go to diffuse mode if you haven't even seen the problem? So just go to solving the problem and you're gonna get stuck because the solution is here. So what you do is you rest, take a break, take a walk, do something else. Your subconscious will do the problem solving for you, and then it's will be able to find this spot. Now, when you go back to the problem, you can now bounce off your thoughts here and be able to solve the problem. So that is how it works. So in this visual representation. All right. So another exercise. Okay, so we have these coins, and what we'd like to do is you move only 3 coins such that you have a triangle that points down. Okay, so move only 3 coins so that you have a triangle that points down.
Na-solve ko na yung kanina. Pero
Right.
na-OC
so
ako.
for those of you who haven't seen this problem before, haven't solved it, try to solve it. And maybe you can go back to this part of the video later on, but we'll move forward. This is another problem. How many errors are in this sentence? So if you think about it, Rage, don't say it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you can always go back to this video later. Let's move. All right. So,
hindi mo ba sasagutin yon para sa audience natin?
Okay, sige, ganito. Later, after this webinar, at the end of this webinar, I'm gonna show the solutions. All right?
Yes.
Okay. But in that case, try to copy this one. Okay, so you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 coins. And then here you have this sentence contains 3 errors. So try to write that down and try to solve that. And then we will show yung solution at the end of this webinar. Okay, so you cannot do diffuse and focus modes at the same time. Right? So, which is because the very definitions of diffuse and focus mode is focus is you have a very specific part of your brain working, whereas diffuse is your entire brain is working, pero very it's like a very shallow activity. So that means if we focus too much on a problem, we block the diffuse mode. So for example, you're stuck in a problem. Oh shoot, I've been thinking about this for 2 hours, di ko ma-solve. Don't try to sweat it. Stop and rest and let your brain do the diffuse mode. So this is a lifesaver for a lot of students who are having a hard time learning a new material, right? So usually students would like read and read and read till they understand, but that's not gonna work, right? What's gonna work is read it, you don't understand it first, rest, go back to the material, you will understand it a little bit, rest, go back, and so on. Hindi yung spend 6 hours doing this math problem. No, don't do it that way. And it's kind of good to hear kasi it eliminates a lot of frustrations na, oh shoot, parang dinidigdig ko na to sa ulo ko pero di ko magets. Yeah, it's obvious. It's not that you're dumb. It's because you're blocking your brain from doing the diffuse mode thinking. That's what I think yung school system doesn't mention. Okay. So that's the trick. That's the diffuse mode and the focus mode. Okay, so these are the things that we mentioned naman kanina. Do something else. So it also works for problem solving. It works for learning new materials. Personally, I've seen it work for me. There's this problem that I've having a hard time understanding, and then I would rest for like 25 minutes, go back to it, and so on. So this is not just theory. This has worked. But do not rest too long. Because if you rest too long, you might forget about the problem. So just maybe a rule of thumb is rest for a maximum of 1 day, then go back to the problem. So just give your time, I just give your mind enough time na i-process yung information, but not too much time that you forget about it. Yeah.
True. Natulog na yung brain cells mo.
Exactly.
Kasi
Okay, so
for me, personally then, it takes a while for my brain to boot up, parang ganun.
Mhm.
So kapag ka-stop mo naman siya ng pag-think, mahihirapan ka ding mag-start, restart, parang ganun.
Exactly. Yeah. So so there's a sweet spot for each person. So you just have to find that. Okay. So here's another video. Magnus Carlsen is one of the youngest, if not the youngest, world chess champion. Okay, and in this video he is competing against Garry Kasparov, which is a world champion in chess. All right, so that's what we wanted to show. You see what Magnus Carlsen did, right?
He walked.
Yeah, he walked. He stood up. He walked because he was getting stuck probably. So he didn't force it like yung parang tinitigan yung chessboard like that. He deliberately stood up and then faced the other way para hindi niya makita yung chessboard. So what he did there was diffuse mode because that gives him ideas. So at the end of this, he's a kid and then he's battling this super good world champion, and it was a draw at the end of it. Now, if you look for yung AlphaGo competition, so this Google has an AI that competed with the world champion in Go. You would notice that this guy would stand up from time to time, walk around, do something else when he's getting stuck. So they are very much aware dun sa diffuse mode thinking. Okay. We've mentioned this before na rest. Okay, focus first, then rest. Do something. Maybe surf the web, do Facebook. Pero don't waste time doing Facebook by not doing something before that. So one of the best ways that you can maximize Facebook time, because when we talk about Facebook, it's so unproductive, right? Just scrolling. Actually, Facebook can be productive. What you can do is mag-study ka ng something hard before, or do something that's a difficult task before, and then stop, do Facebook. So that way, while you're doing Facebook, your mind is thinking and trying to solve the problem. So you have a productive Facebook.
Makes sense. Pwede.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try that.
Okay, so what other ways can you do to trigger diffuse mode? Oops. So I've mentioned a couple of things here. Wash dishes, take a bath, take a nap, surf the web, Facebook. So for you guys watching this, please share how would you do diffuse mode? So Rage, how would you do diffuse mode?
I have my guitar here. I have my ukulele.
Nice.
Sometimes I play either ML, Mobile Legends, or COD.
Yeah.
What's COD again? Call of Duty. Yeah. So
Exactly.
sometimes I get ideas from the games themselves. So if I install some games, I actually get ideas from it. So I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, some of the parts or features of the applications that we're doing in Bridge 360 actually came from some of the games like
Hmm.
Sims.
Exactly. Yun, so it's a good thing that you mentioned games because, for example, ML, um, Mobile Legends, di ba parang, ikaw kasi Mobile Legends ka na Mobile Legends,
Mm-mm.
nag-aaral, ganyan. Actually, Mobile Legends can be productive. Parang, imagine that, playing Mobile Legends can actually help you study. That is something that's not mentioned by people. Pero
Yeah.
what you do is study math or whatever you're studying sa school, then play Mobile Legends. That way, your mind is studying while you're playing Mobile Legends, and that's the magic in this strategy.
But there's I think there's a limit to that because there's a very it's sort of addictive addictive si Mobile Legends. So if you're someone who's not that disciplined yet, and still struggling with the discipline of saying no when you have to say no, it might like parang at some point when you're playing already, it might take a while and then you forgot the things that you should be thinking.
Right, right.
So medyo ano din siya, parang heads up, while it is yes, kasi baka gawing parang rule ng ano ng nakakarinig sa atin. Tas baka may mga bata dito na nag-aaral pa. Baka gawin nilang mismong rason para hey, I can still play but I can still do some homework. Yes, but make sure that the homework part is at some point larger yung time to think for it rather than playing time, right?
Exactly. Okay, so we have some comments here of what they would do.
Go.
So yeah, Prop Jerry. Look at photographs ng Nat Geo. And so Tita Jesu is here. I'm cutting a pattern, and I kind of went out and watered my garden. Yeah, so these are great ways to go to diffuse mode.
I also do yung mga household chores.
Nice.
Yung mga random lang na okay, I'll sweep the floor first kasi hindi na gumagana yung utak ko. Something like that. Some people might be doing exercise. I think some takes that time kung talagang wala nang nangyayari sa utak nila. That's maybe exercising will pump some blood all
For
over the
sure.
place in your body. Yeah.
True exercise is one of the best things you can do. Okay, so let's talk about procrastination. Okay.
I'm one.
Okay. How do you solve this? Because okay, we know diffuse and focus mode, right? But I can't even do the focus mode. I mean, I'm a procrastinator. I can't even gusto ko diffuse mode lang palagi. How do you overcome this? Well, some of the things you can do is at the start of the day, magsulat ka ng gusto mo ma-accomplish. So, for example, write down this essay, solve this problem. All right? And then, this is another thing that works well, yung Pomodoro technique. So, Pomodoro means tomato because, so I'll double check that. Pomodoro is Italian, if I'm not mistaken. And it means tomato. Now, it's called Pomodoro, yung timers nila. It's called Pomodoro because their timers look like tomatoes. So they just call it Pomodoro. Now, what you can do is like deliberately set a timer for 25 minutes, then do your task. Then don't even think about finishing it. Don't think about the goal, just think about the process. So for example, hey, I need to finish this essay. Okay, set a timer for 25 minutes and then type whatever you can do. Whatever you can type, go to your laptop, type whatever you can type. Don't even think about finishing it. Okay?
This is the Pomodoro.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So that's why. Okay.
Nice. Exactly. Thanks for that, Rage. Okay, so once you've set a 25 minutes and it's over, reward yourself. Okay, play ML, do Facebook, something, do something, and then go back. So maybe set a timer there as well. So maybe I'll play for 30 minutes, right? After 30 minutes, go back to your task, do it for 25 minutes, and so on. And then before you know it, matatapos mo na yung task mo simply because you're doing it. Okay, and yeah.
Actually, this one is very, very effective for me. Like I do this um uh even just a few hours ago. Like I do the task, I wrote it down because I'm a procrastinator, really. So I'm always with my handy pencil and a pen and the paper. I write it down, and then once I know my task for the day, um I can start with one, and then after some time, if it's not getting through me, then I'll just, I'll do some stuff like maybe eat, and then play for some time, 15 to 20 minutes of playing time, and then I work again, and then play again, and then work again, because I think the usual ML time of playing, or even the Call of Duty time, is just around 15 to 20 minutes, and then you're done. So again, you can go back to your work. Yeah.
Great, nice to hear that that's working for you. So for you guys who haven't tried it, try it. Okay, so you remember na nag-write down ka ng things you want to accomplish for the day. At the end of the day, check it out. So tingnan mo, may accomplish ba ako dito? If wala, it's fine. If meron, great. If wala, hopefully next day is meron na. So what you want to do is try to write down the things you want to accomplish naman for the next day. So when you wake up the next day, try to what do you call this? Review the things that you wrote, and then try to revise that if you need to revise it. So why will it work? It will work because you're basically priming your mind for these things. So you're making it explicit, you're making it visual, and you're deliberately thinking about it. So your mind is being primed na I have to do this. Hindi lang siya parang mabigat na bagay na you don't know what it is for a lot. So for me, for a lot of things, that's what happens na ang dami ko lang gawin pero ano ba talaga yan, right? So try to write it down and organize the things that you have to do. Right. So
maybe we can just have a quick wrap up nung learning hack number 1. I think the reason why, kasi di ba parang yung mga kakapasok lang ngayon, why are we tackling being a procrastinator and how to tackle procrastination when our topic is about learning how to learn? So just to connect them, it's just really more on how are you going to work around on your own way of learning kasi, diba? So how are we going to make sure that we do both of the switching between the focus mode and the diffuse mode? So that's why we also need to tackle your procrastination habit, which is also basically switching from the way that you're basically the way that you're doing is you focus on the task, and then you procrastinate, and then focus on the task, and then you procrastinate, something like that. So yeah.
Exactly, parang make the procrastination productive.
Yeah. Basically, yes. Okay, moving forward.
Okay, so what is the second one? Memory. It's about memory hacks. Okay, so just to give you the spoilers, 3 things at least we will discuss in this webinar: spaced repetition, memory palace, and association, and lastly, sleep. And we'll discuss later why sleep is there. Let's start with number 1, spaced repetition. We have 2 kinds of memory. Well, simply put, we have 2 kinds of memory that we want to see in this discussion. This is the working memory, and then we have the long-term memory. So working memory is short-term, very short-term, and it's when I give you a couple of numbers like 79, 36, 12, 85, right? That goes into your working memory. Now, if I ask you those numbers 1 hour later, or maybe even 5 minutes later, you might not remember those things. So it's basically just like a juggler, um, and you're able to juggle only a couple of things at once. So that's how working memory works. So kung ako, nag-aaral ako ng bagong topic, do I want the topic to be in my working memory
No.
forever? Like, you cannot do that, right? You have to store it somewhere else na long term. And that is where your long-term memory comes in, which is like a warehouse. So it's a warehouse na parang Amazon warehouse or Lazada warehouse na it's able to store many things, naka-index and so forth. However, there is a downside to that, which is it can be a bit difficult to to get these memories. So medyo matatagalan ka pa dyan to get those memories. Unless, so for example, you got memories like 10 years ago, which may be a bit vague by now. Or maybe nung college kayo or nung high school, you know yung equation ng quadratic equation, like alam na alam nyo before, but now hindi nyo na masyado maalala. Pero definitely that information is still in your long-term memory. It's just that natabunan na siya ng other memories. And it's just that a matter of reviewing them if you want to uncover them. Okay, so the question is, how do you transfer your working memory into your long-term memory? And the answer there is spaced repetition. So what is spaced repetition? Before that, I'll ask you these two questions. This question: which one is better? The first one, rereading a material 20 times in one day, or number two, rereading a material once a day, reviewing it the next day, reviewing it the next week, and reviewing it the next month.
I think it's easier. For me, it's easier for me to do the number two.
Right, because that is what spaced repetition is. So if you try to reread a material 20 times a day, for example, you're a student, tas nagka-cram ka sa exam. Your exam is tomorrow, so you have to study like 5 chapters for the exam tomorrow. So what you do is reread it 20 times, those 5 chapters. It's not gonna be very effective because you didn't give your mind enough time to consolidate information. So imagine na when you're memorizing something, imagine na nagtatayo kayo ng bahay. So una, foundation ng bahay. Ngayon, naglagay kayo ng semento and basa. Hindi pa nga tuyo yung semento, magtatayo na kayo nung walls or pader. Ano mangyayari sa bahay mo? Hindi siya magiging stable, right? So just like sa memory needs time to consolidate na parang semento. So the first time you read something, parang nagsiset ka ng foundation, and then give it time to harden. And then you go back to it and so forth. Now, rereading a material 20 times a day, it's like coming up with a house na yung foundation hindi pa nga tuyo, tas magtatayo ka na ng wall, tas magtatayo ka na ng everything. So it's gonna be shaky. So for your exam the next day, you might be able to pass it, pero I doubt that you will remember it in your long-term memory. And I doubt that you will even ace your exam or get high scores in your exam. And ultimately understand the material. So a better way of doing that is, for example, right after a class, what you can do is, so you've been writing down notes, right? What you can do is right after your class, review as soon as possible. So paglabas nyo ng room, if wala ka namang class, go to a quiet place, try to review what you've learned, and then for the next day, review it again, and the next week, review it. And then you will realize, hindi mo na kailangan mag-aral for the exam the next day. Maybe a konting review na lang. So that's how it works.
To all of our viewers out there, I suggest that you believe Prince. Well, he has the ano naman, tawag nito, he was able to ace our batch licensure exam. That's one. I think it doesn't an mining engineering's licensure exam wouldn't be like parang overnight lang tas makukuha mo lahat ng topics, right? So if you're doing what Prince have done before, then I think you will also ace any licensure exams. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Or
if
any
you're taking
exam at all.
licensure exam, yeah, better start preparing as soon as possible. Just do the spaced repetition thing. Yeah.
Mm. Although may mga na-delay, I think, na-postpone na mga licensure exams because of COVID-19. But again, this is not also the time to be so slack. You can do this reading the material every other day or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have time, tapos you're just in your home, and now is the perfect time to learn something new, right? And you can use the strategies that we're discussing here to do that, na hassle-free. So that's why we call it hacks, because it's not like brute force, ipopokpok mo yung libro sa ulo mo, pero it's more of a very effective and efficient way of learning.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, that's what spaced repetition is. It does work miracles for exams. So I have plenty of experience in doing that. Yung what I mentioned na right after the class or right after reading something, try to review. I've been doing that since college, and it really paid off. But I didn't think of it as spaced repetition at that time. But now that we put a word, like a term for it, I think we can do it more deliberately. Na, okay, sige, I want to learn this. Paano yung strategy ko? So you can write it down like, for tomorrow, I'm going to study this. And then for 3 days later, I'm going to review it and so on. Okay, so here's a question for everyone. How will you use spaced repetition in your life?
That's interesting. How? Maybe in work, you can do that. Like learn one step at a time, not like learning all of the things that you have to learn in your job, in your new job. Kasi if you're a new hire, for example, you wouldn't really get all of the things that were given to you, like tasks, what to do, the instructions, and all those stuff. But you kind of learn as you go, and try to review what you have learned before and what you should be doing next to improve, something like that.
Nice, agree. Yeah, for sure. So work, for professionals out there, learning doesn't stop naman sa school or sa university. And given that we are in the fourth industrial revolution, moving towards the fifth, learning fast is key, even sa workplace. And spaced repetition can help there. Okay, memory hack number 2 is the memory palace. And we'll have a quick exercise for that. I'll just set a timer. In 1 minute, try to memorize the objects here.
Ano itong natatakpan ng YouTube and Facebook live dito sa gilid?
Seatbelt.
Floor and seatbelt. Okay, gotcha. Ayun, nakikita ko na. Ayun.
Okay, 1 minute's done. Can you write down what you remember? Okay.
Oh my God, okay.
How many did we get right? So,
Ano ba yan? Lost ako bigla. Shucks. Oo nga pala. Ayun. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10.
10. Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot. So, anyone watching this na nag-try nung exercise, please feel free to share sa comments how many you got right. 10 is a high number. um, so, how can you increase that, right? So you can increase that to more than 10 if you wish to. On the average, though, you would see like 6 or 7. That's the average number that we got dun sa previous workshop natin. 6 or 7. Yeah.
Nice.
6 to 7. All right. So let's now discuss memory and evolution. Then we'll go back to that exercise later so you can do yung strategy. Okay, so yung ancestors natin, or basically tayo as humans, we evolved to be wary of the environment. We evolved na we memorize spaces and where things are located. And the reason for that is when we were starting as tribes, you had to survive, right? The harsh environments, meaning meron diyang mga predators, meron diyang kakulangan sa food, kulang sa water. So your ability to remember saan ba yung pagkain, saan ba yung poisonous fruits, saan ba yung mga predators, your ability to remember these things can help in people's survival. That's why our brains evolved to have that spatial memory, ability to memorize if things are in space. The second thing is stories. So our cultures and basically knowledge get passed on through generations for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years through stories. So stories around the fireplace and so on. So even if pumunta kayo sa Pilipinas, yung mga prinsesa halimbawa ng certain tribes, they would memorize stories, sometimes in the form of songs. Kasi yun yung history of their tribe. So history and information and knowledge shared through stories are very effective. So if I give you math, like just math without any context or stories, or alam mo yung when we're teaching kids history and then we just ask, kailan binaril si Rizal? Ilang taon siya nung binaril siya? And those things. It's hard to remember those things because walang story. Like, why do kids even care? Right? But if you put a story to it, you would remember more na yung nangyari kay Rizal, why it happened, and so on. So these two things, spatial memories, memory about spaces, as well as stories, how can we use these na innate sa atin as humans so that we can memorize better? That is the question. Okay, so let's move forward. Let us introduce you to Memory Palace. Memory Palace or Memory Place or Memory House or anything that's space, it's something that's familiar. Try to imagine a familiar place, literally yung spaces. Maybe yung bahay mo, yung school mo, and then imagine the things that you want to memorize in that space. So, for example, I showed you a couple of images before, right? May vase ka, may shoes ka. So instead of thinking of them as individual objects, think of them as objects in your house. And then try to see how that will impact your memory. But it even gets better when we include association. So this is where stories come into play. Okay, so for example, meron kang nail cutter, flower, keyboard, and camera. So you can imagine them in your house. May nail cutter ka sa table, may flower ka dyan, and so on. But it's gonna be even more effective if you imagine something like a story. And it's very effective if it's absurd. Like sobrang craziness ng story. So imagine someone is in your living room. He's taking a picture of flowers with his mouth while clipping his nails. He's typing on a keyboard with his foot. So it's like this image, memorable, because it's crazy and it's new. Oh, by the way, things that are new and novel are memorable. Kaya nga, mahilig tayo sa chismis. Kasi parang, ay, shoot, si ano pala, ganun. Alam mo, it's new. And you remember chismis. You don't remember yung boring stuff like, oh, ano, pumunta siya ng school ng ganitong oras. Why? Pero if you say na, uy, sinuntok niya si ganito. Wow, you would remember that. Okay, so how do we tap into that ability to remember new things to stories and spaces? Use the memory palace and association. So let's go back to the exercise. Try to come up with a memory palace or memory place, and then association or stories to memorize the following. So I'll give 30 seconds.
Like everything with each other.
Yeah. Okay. Oops. Alright, sige. I'll share mine first, tapos maybe you'd like to share yours, Rage. And for those of you listening, feel free to share your memory place, and association. So, actually what I used is, I imagined a person doon sa house, tapos he's holding a vase, tapos yung ngipin niya toothpick. Right, tapos naka-blouse siya. Tapos meron siyang dalawang meron siyang suot na sandal sa right foot and then slippers.
Oh my God, same.
May punch doon sa top ng ulo niya. Tapos yung playing card nandito sa likod ng tenga niya. And may eyeliner siya. Right.
Okay.
How about yours, Ray?
Sa akin, parang nagparehas tayo doon sa, the other one is yung sandal nasa right, yung slipper nasa left foot. And then this person, yung toothpicks nilagay niya sa vase, sa loob ng vase. So nakalagay siya doon. Yung sponge, nagmukha lang siyang slipper. So parang tiningnan niya lang, parang that looks like a slipper too. And then so yung woman na yung person na may suot na blouse also wears an eyeliner and holds a playing card. Yeah.
Nice. Great. So let's go to the more difficult one. Let's try to memorize this in 1 minute using the memory palace and association.
Sige. Wait, i-move natin siya. Yan, shoelace and floor.
Okay. Sige, so let's write down everything.
Sige. Parang yun na lang naaalala ko. Wala na akong alala.
Alright, sige. Alright.
Oh,
Sige,
okay.
so I'll just share yung I didn't memorize everything. I wasn't able to memorize everything, but I'll show you drawing. Oops, liwanag, wait. There. Sige. Here? Oops, not that. Here. Can you guys see it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so nag-drawing ako ng may truck. Tapos, merong packing peanut sa loob. Tapos yung driver niya,
Same.
teddy bear. Tapos, may dude na nasa loob ng bahay namin, may dala siyang camera. And then, nasa tabi niya is yung phone namin na may nakalagay na flag. Tapos, dun sa dining table namin, may bowl. And then, may nakikita ka, merong doon sa labas ng bahay namin na malaking pot. Tapos, sa loob ng pot, may bahay. May map lang doon sa tabi. Yeah, so...
nice.
Yeah.
That's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9,
9, 10?
11.
Okay, hindi ko na nakuha yung iba. Sorry. Hindi ko nakuha yung sinabi mo.
Yeah. Hindi, pero unfair kasi nakita ko ito nilang beses. So.
Okay, sa akin, first time ko ito nakita. Sa akin, ang inisip ko kasi, so doon sa truck, nilagay mo yung packing peanuts, at saka peanuts. So, naalala ko naman, may peanuts ako. So, yung peanuts ko din, packing peanuts ko din, ay nilagay ko sa bowl, at yung candy wrapper nilagay ko din sa bowl. And then, I remember the flag kasi it has the same color with the candy wrapper. And then, naisip ko din na, okay, I think katabi ng flag is a phone. And then from there, parang, phone. Usually, hindi ko alam kung bakit ko naalala yung blanket with my teddies. And you can play with, parang, yung teddies kasi can also be parang categorized as toys. And then, before, I also use rubber bands para gawing toy siya. Yung gagawin mo siyang yung parang pang 10-20 or Chinese garter. And then, since nag-Chinese garter ako at naglalaro ako, nasa loob ako ng bahay. So, I remembered my house. And then from the house, I have my TV, my camera. And then, I saw a shoelace on the floor. And suddenly, I remembered my sketch pad. And in the house, there's also soap. And yung sa sketch pad, naalala ko din yung grid paper, paras kasi silang paper. And of course, while you're writing, you need the eraser. And since the truck saw the stop sign, he went bananas. And then,
Alright.
and then he went bananas. And then I remembered, there's a banana and then there's a carrot, right? So he went.
Alright, so that's a staggering 18. 18 memorized. So from your 10, naging 18. Dang it, right? It works.
It works. Actually, kaya din mataas yung yung dun sa first part. Kasi I remembered yung sleepers. Nasabi ko nga, isuot ko din yung sleeper at saka yung sandal. Tapos, at some point, gumamit na rin pala ako ng ang tawag nito, ng Memory Palace and Association without even hearing about it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
All right. Perfect.
Let's see. Jesus sabi niya, in India, there is a truck heading to a farm to pack some of the harvest, like banana, carrots, and peanuts. Oh, that's nice. Right there, he brought a rubber band. Good job.
All right. Thanks for sharing. So, let's move on to the next one. The last one for our memory hacks for this webinar, which is sleep. So, why is sleep important? Sleep is important because it flushes out built-up waste in the brain, allowing you to think creatively. And also, sleep consolidates memory. And this is related dun sa idea natin of diffuse mode. Remember yung kanina, which is diffuse mode kind of helps figure out the solution to problems. Pero at the same time, sleep is a one big diffuse mode. So sleep can help you solve problems, but at the same time, it can help consolidate memory. Like yung analogy natin kanina, which is, pag nagtatayo ka ng bahay, you've got foundation na you have to, what do you call this? You have to let it harden first and so on. So sleep helps there. Okay. So how do you maximize sleep for learning? So what you can do is study a material, and you're now in focus mode, and then sleep. So for example, you want to learn a new language, you want to learn how to play guitar even, sleep helps. And this is something that you can try, is you think that you will dream about the material. So it's like priming your subconscious to think about the material while you're sleeping. And then after you wake up, review the material, but don't just reread. So try to actively recall, meaning, ano ulit yung inaral ko kagabi? Something like that. And try to see kung ano yung maalala nyo. And if meron kayong makalimutan, then you go back to your notebook or to the material. And lastly is, as much as possible, avoid staying overnight before a test, for example. Right? So my question is, ano dapat yung ginamit mo? Instead of staying overnight, what should you have done? And that is yung idea of spaced repetition, right? So instead of like staying up late for a test, a long-term solution will be mag-spaced repetition ka, right after you learned it, review it, and so on. Hindi yung ikakram mo siya right before a test. But we know this may not be applicable all the time. Parang sometimes you just don't have time, and sometimes you just have to cram it. That's not healthy, but that's the best you can do in that situation, for example. But as much as you can, is just try to do the spaced repetition thing. Okay. So, memory hacks recap. Why does memory palace and association work? So, I'm not gonna answer these in full, but remember yung how we evolved, how our brains evolved, and spaces and stories. Which use case do you think memory palace can be helpful? So I think Rage, you already mentioned yung it can help sa workplace.
Mm.
And of course, it can work for a lot of things, right? We use our memory for a lot of things. When inside and outside your home, you will have to use your memory. Like, for example, if you're buying groceries and you don't have it written down, you don't have your grocery list written down or something. It's best if you can remember them. For example, if you forgot to bring your list, right? And okay, so these are the things that I would like to ask the audience is, how can you transfer working memory to long-term memory? Spaced repetition. And then how do you plan to remember the learning hacks from this workshop? So it's up to you to come up with a strategy for that. How does sleep help memory? We know how does sleep help memory? We know that it cleans our brain, removes yung dirt, and at the same time it helps consolidate memory because it's like a super diffuse mode. And just some questions for everyone. Since nag-start tayo ng webinar, what's the clearest topic and what's the least clear topic? So feel free to share sa comment section. Ano ba yung naguguluhan kayo? Ano ba yung malinaw na malinaw? So for example, for your age, what do you find clearest, and is there anything na malabo?
Right now kasi parang yung bago sa akin is the memory palace and association.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really proven important to have some sort of quick way of associating it to a story.
Nice. Thanks for that. Yes, that is very important, and we have to remember that all the time. Okay, so we won't have a break anymore. Let's go to the third learning hack, which is metacognition, which simply speaking, I thinking about thinking. Meta, okay, so let's break down the words. Meta means self, itself. Cognition means thinking. So basically, metacognition is what it is, thinking about thinking. So it's like Inception. So you remember sa movie na they are going deeper and deeper into dreams. So you're in a dream, tapos papasok ka sa dream nung dream, tapos papasok ka sa dream nung dream nung dream. We can do that with our thinking na, I am thinking. Is my thinking correct? So you're not just thinking na, I'm thinking about this problem, this problem. War on drugs, for example. Let's go a bit political. Like war on drugs. Let's think about war on drugs. Instead of doing that, also do thinking about thinking. Is my thinking about war on drugs correct? Am I really understanding this properly? So it's like you have conscience in a way, na trying to ask you questions and trying to what do you call this, internally try to play the devil's advocate in a way na baka naman hindi tama yung pagkakaintindi ko or malinaw ba to and so forth. That's basically it, really. So it's very funny because if you read a lot of research papers on learning, metacognition comes up a lot of times. And in fact, one time I took an online course organized by MIT, and it's so funny because they're one of the best schools because the way they organize the online course is you have metacognition every step of the way. Amazing nga eh, kasi parang whoa, they're really doing it na they're asking, okay, what do you understand best? What do you expect to learn? And all that. And by asking the students those questions, you're asking them to do metacognition. So they're very much aware why metacognition is important. And they're doing it. So yun lang yun, ganun lang kasimple. And if you read it, it's like a magic trick na apparently all you have to do is just ask questions. But why does it work? It works because you give your mind a feedback loop, of course, and you're able to uncover yung ano ba yung hindi mo naintindihan, ano ba naintindihan mo. Because a lot of times that I realize with some of the students, hindi nila alam yung hindi nila alam. And hindi nila alam ako confused na pala sila. They think they get it, but they don't. So you have to be very explicit in your mind na ano sinasabi niya. If you're reading something, ano nga ba sinasabi to? But hindi ko siya maintindihan. Hindi yung, sige, binasa ko na, so nagets ko na yan. Hindi eh. Oftentimes you don't get it. So you just have to say it out loud in your mind. Out loud or say it in your mind na, hindi ko maintindihan. Bakit? Ang labo niya magsalita. So sometimes I do that na there was a book I was reading. It was parang, ulit-ulit siyang sinasabi niya, hindi ko maintindihan. O kaya, ang labo ng sinasabi niya. Ganon, like I literally do that in my mind. And that helps. So, metacognition, very simple, ask yourself. So, what do I know? For example, before you read, what do I know about the topic? What don't I know? What might I learn, right? What's confusing?
Actually, metacognition is also basically introspection.
Mm-hmm.
So, you try to understand, yun nga, introspection. So, you also try to understand, ano ba talaga yung ginawa mo, ganun. Like, tama ba yung ginawa mo previously? Tapos, ano yung pwede mong gawin para ma-improve mo yon? So, that's also introspection. Trying to reflect on your reflection then, parang ganun. Nag-reflect ka, tapos i-reflect mo yung ni-reflect mo. So, yeah, introspection. And I think that's also part of meditation. So, thinking quietly to yourself, thinking about what you are thinking, basically is also part of meditation, I think. So, and having that is can actually help you. Di ba sabi nila 30 minutes of you should be doing 30 minutes of meditation a day, and it would actually help you throughout your day. and it will keep you sane, and make sure that kumbaga, your life is still is going to the right direction, something. Assessing yourself, yeah.
Actually, meditation can also be thought of as diffuse mode.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So parang it's actually a very good way to do diffuse mode. Meditation can boost your energy. So I've been doing that as well. So fairly recently, I'm having little energy, so I would do some meditation to help boost the energy. Tsaka yun nga, parang it gives you, it kind of, it's like sleep, pero you're able to sleep a shorter time. That's how I would imagine. Kasi the energy boost that it gives you is like you've slept longer. It feels like that.
Mm-hmm.
So meditation can definitely help with learning. So yeah, that's basically it. Introspection, metacognition. It's that simple, really. In fact, you don't have to answer these questions. It's really funny, from what I read at least, is the very act of asking is enough for most cases. Hindi mo kailangang sagutin. Parang nagigets ko ba? That's all you have to do. And apparently that helps kasi subconsciously it kind of unveils yung hindi mo talaga naintindihan na naiintindihan mo. So it's cool. That's basically it. So we can move on to our fourth one, which is mind maps. And what are mind maps? Mind maps are a way, it's a way for us to write down information and see the connections between them. So it's like association that we've been doing, like mentally, pero you just write it down. And it's important to write it down with a pen and paper because research tells us that consolidates information better because it's harder to do that. If it's harder to do it, apparently it works better in terms of learning. So you're really forced, for example, na i-restructure yung idea in a form that you can write it down and see the associations between them, and that really helps with learning. So writing it down and then seeing the connections between them, that's basically mind mapping.
And I think parang yung kanina, dugtong ito doon sa ginagawa natin na mind palace and memory palace plus association.
Yep.
So parang ganun din ang ginagawa natin, but this time with the mind maps, there's a deliberate topic that is being asked.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, thanks for that. So you're able to connect mind maps with the memory palace. So if you're gonna make a mind map out of that, there's a connection there. So here are some examples of mind maps. So you can be really creative about it. Like this one, so whoever did this got that all the time in the world, right? To come up with this mind map. Or it can be like this one. Now, is there a structure in mind mapping? No. It really depends on how you think. And sometimes people think in a very organized manner. Sometimes they think in a very complex and chaotic manner. So that's fine. It really depends on how you would connect the dots. So there's no single best way to mind map. And it's just good to say that explicitly because for a lot of people, they think that they have to organize things when they're doing mind mapping, when in fact, just let it flow. That's how your brain thinks. Put it on paper. So that's the idea, is how your brain connects the dots. Put it on paper, and so that enforces knowledge.
Correct.
So,
and I think to add to that, what you can do then is really when you do the mind mapping, instead of explaining it like in words, explain it via the visual mapping, and it works brilliantly. Like yeah.
Exactly. So this is super useful for what you mentioned earlier, Age, which is systems thinking. So we do that in Bridge360. So we do that, right? We also do design thinking coupled with systems thinking and design thinking. and we are able to show connections using mind maps, right?
Yes.
So this will be useful for our next webinars, for our next talks. One of these talks will be systems thinking, right? And
Yeah.
you, Ray, will be the one to talk about that.
Yes.
So mind mapping can really help there, and it's something that very few organizations do for some reason. So I'm really advocating to visualize things this way as mind maps, because you're able to see connections that you're not able to see kung listahan lang yan. Kunwari, listahan lang yan ng tasks.
Mm-mm.
You're not able to see how everything is connected, or maybe listahan lang yan ng activities. So kunwari ikaw isang organization tapos meron kang a couple of activities. All your activities are not silos na disconnected. All of them have relations to each other, and it's best if you can draw connections between them, right?
Correct. Um, many organizations fall for that. They just list everything, like whenever they create goals, whenever they create kasi diba there are like even mga theories of change, for example, mga ganong types of theories. There are so many types of theories that you can actually do for your organizations, but then at the end of the day, if you don't do systems thinking or mapping, you're doing a mind map um, for your team, for your project team, organization, or what, hindi niyo makikita yung bigger picture, which is again the bigger picture ng organization, and it's also part of the diffuse method, right?
Yeah.
So since hindi mo na-diffuse kung ano yung meron na, hindi mo na ilalatag, kumbaga sa harap ng lahat, hindi na ilalatag yung mga ganong information, kasi there are certain information that you might not know but other people know.
Yep.
So as while you're doing the mind maps, you actually try now to connect with other people's mind maps. So from there, you are doing a large scale diffuse mode with everybody else. Parang ganun.
Yes, that's a good analogy. So organization is like one big brain that's doing diffuse mode via mind mapping. Yeah, that's a very good analogy. And that, a lot of organizations fail to see, but it can really help them see the big picture if they're able to mind map yung different activities and so forth. Okay, so this was an exercise originally intended for an offline session. So in yung past learning how to learn workshop natin, we asked our participants to mind map everything they learned so far. And they're able to do that, they're able to connect the dots in ways that I didn't even think of. So that's cool. So yeah, if you're a participant after this webinar, you can feel free to start doing the mind mapping. It's basically just writing down things and then connecting the dots. If you like to draw something, then draw. If you like to do it in a chaotic manner, do so. And we're now into our last technique, which is the Feynman technique. So it's how do you understand better by explaining it to someone. So there's this saying that I've heard or read. The best way to learn something is to teach it, and that is true from my experience, at least, and from the experience of a lot of people. Teaching is one of the best ways you can learn something, but there is a specific way of teaching it that will help you learn faster, and it is the Feynman technique of explaining it. So, who is Richard Feynman before we start? He's the inspiration of the Feynman technique, and he's a Nobel Prize winner. He's a quantum physicist, and he's known to be the great explainer because he explains things so well that even kids would understand. And he's not exactly a fan of jargon. So there's this anecdote about him na pumunta siya sa isang conference, and then a physicist, a lot of physicists, and then this guy approached him and said, "Do you know this something something term, right?" And he said, "I don't know that." Right? But really, he knows it. It's just that he doesn't like knowing the terms alone. So for him, knowing the terms is not the same as knowing the concept. What he did was he asked the physicist, okay, what do you think is it? And he was able to show that the physicist didn't even know it. And the funny thing about it is, he's a quantum physicist, right? And quantum physics is one of the things that very like people don't know about. Like no one has seen an atom or electrons the way we see things. So quantum mechanics is about electrons and protons and smaller things and things smaller than these things. And we're not familiar with how these things behave. So it's so absurd for us. It's so alien. We live in a world na objects made up of atoms na marami. Pero when we actually look at individual particles, it becomes crazy. It becomes unintuitive. Hindi na siya common sense. And so Richard Feynman is dealing with these things that people don't know about. So what he did was, actually this won him the Nobel Prize, and it's so funny because what he did was he came up with a system of drawing interactions of particles. Drawing in a very simple way na parang kindergarten drawings. Tapos when he shared it to his colleagues, parang inan lang, meh, what's that? Meh. Kasi when you look at the drawings, squiggles, actually, maybe you can look for it, Rage, to share to the audience. But Feynman diagrams, you can search for Feynman diagrams. These are just squiggles and all that. Pero eventually, nakita nung colleagues na, wow, this is useful. It helps us understand better. So he won the Nobel Prize because of that, because of the Feynman diagrams, which until now is being used and being taught. In fact, nakita ko sa UP Physics, I think, nakita ko yung isang kaibigan ko, he was learning that. So it's cool. And that's because of his need to understand everything by explaining it very simply.
I think this one is a Feynman diagram explaining protons and the neutrons and all the waves and stuff. But actually, I think I can still remember this one way back in physics, physics class. Na tipong, how are you able to understand that the protons and electrons would actually go that way with all those? But it's easier actually to understand. Okay, so that's
before Feynman. Before those diagrams, they were just using these very convoluted, complicated math. Na parang I can't even imagine it. Like what the heck are these things? And then he visualized it in a very simple way. Okay, so that's Feynman. So what's the Feynman technique? Let's just go here to what he said first. He says that I couldn't reduce it to the freshman level. That means we really don't understand it. So if you cannot explain it to a freshman, for example, you probably don't understand it. So that's where it's coming from. So how do you do the Feynman technique so that you understand your subject? So of course, you have to find a subject you want to learn about. And then the second one is write it down. Okay, write down the subject. Maybe you can do mind maps for that. And then try to see if you can teach it to a child. Na parang may bata, nobody knows about this topic, and then see if you can teach it. So if you go to YouTube, you'll be able to see meron dong explaining a topic in five different levels. Meron nagtuturo siya ng music theory sa 5-year-old, 10-year-old, and college student, hanggang sa professionals na, kasi na-explain niya in different ways. So that's one of the best ways that you can learn something, explaining it in different levels. So starting with the child. Okay, so now, will you be able to do it the first time? Maybe not. Baka nahihirapan, okay, shoot, ano nga pala to, paano ko i-explain to? Paano ko i-explain for example, sa mining? Paano ko i-explain ang block caving sa bata? Right?
Nga pala, mining engineers nga pala kami ni Prince.
Yeah. So we still remember those things. And, bro, paano ko ma-explain the block caving method sa bata? And then kakaroon ka ng hard time, okay, shoot, paano kaya to? And so you don't understand it well. And then you go back to understanding it. And then eventually you're gonna see na, okay, that's how I can say it na, well, actually the typical thing is find some analogies in the real world na familiar doon sa tao. Okay, so that's basically it. Why does it work? It works because you're able to reformulate yung thoughts mo so that you'll be able to explain it differently. And then you're able to see ano ba yung hindi ko alam. So in a way, it's kind of a form of metacognition. Right? So basically it. That's the Feynman technique. Okay, so that's the end. That's the end of all the hacks. We have 5 hacks. But before that, maybe you'd like to share something about the Feynman technique, or how do you envision doing it? For example, Rage, ikaw, how do you envision doing it? If you, let's say you want to learn something, paano mo siya na-envision gawin, yung Feynman technique?
Well, depende siguro. Well, one, I have to know first if who is my audience, or who's the audience, demographics muna. Then once I know about that specific demographics, then I now check out what I know, and then versus what I need I outline the topic kasi. So I try to outline the topic, and then see if among those topics, kasi syempre pag gumawa ka ng topic outline, that should include yung things na the people should know about. So those topics that should be known about, from there, what should I know? What among those topics, what are the things that I really know about, and what are the topics that I don't know? So from there, I now learn what I need to know. Parang ganun.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. So it's like Feynman technique and metacognition.
Yeah, so medyo siya, parang before I even do the focusing on which topic I should like write down and all those stuff, I try to diffuse first and know what are parang take a step back, understand who am I really going to present this to, and then from there know what I know, and what I don't know. Yun.
Right. So I'd like to share tong sinabi ni Prof. Jerry. Summarize. If you cannot summarize it, you cannot deliver it well. Reason why algorithms are important, they are summaries. Right. So let's recap yung what we discussed. 5 learning hacks. Try to remember what these are. It doesn't matter kung ano yung order. Okay, so just try to remember it. All right. Focus and diffuse mode. Right? So focus and diffuse mode is basically like searching the problem space and then focusing when you've found how do you want to solve it. It's about focusing and then resting, focusing and resting. Memory palace and association, it's tapping into our innate ability to memorize spaces and stories. So it's memorizing things by imagining familiar spaces and then coming up with stories for them. Metacognition is thinking about your thinking. It's about asking questions in your mind about naintindihan ko ba to? Tama ba intindi ko? Am I doing something right? Am I doing something wrong? And sleep is important because it's like a superpowered, it's a supercharged diffuse mode, and it cleans dirt from our brain as well as helps consolidate memory. And lastly, Feynman technique, which is explaining a topic, a new topic, or an old topic to a child or to someone who doesn't know about that topic. And one of the best ways to really learn is to teach it, because it kind of you have to um, reconstruct that information into something na magigets nung other person, and that helps. And of course, we also have mind mapping, which I didn't show here, but mind mapping can help naman with visually showing the connections between things, and it can help with memory and so forth. Yeah, that's basically the end of this workshop. But maybe you'd like to share, Rage. But before that, I will have to share naman yung answers to the questions earlier. But before that, maybe you'd like to share something.
Well, for one, I think this is a good start. Learning hacks, learning how to learn, so that on the next Friday, we will be talking about mental models. So at least we'll start with the history of mental models. We will be inviting a professor from UP Diliman. His name is Prof. Jerry De Villa. So he will be also helping us out understand the mental models, the history of it, how it came to be, where did it start, why is there mental models now. So the philosophers behind all of this language and mental models. And of course, you will also be there, right? So yeah.
Yes. Okay, thanks for that, Rage. I'll be sharing the solutions now. So for the first one, we are asked to move only 3 coins to form a triangle that points down. So these are the coins, and yeah, that's how you flip it, right? So you move. Can you see it? So you move here, and then you move it here. Okay. Then this is the square. You can actually come up with 2 squares.
I get the left one. Yeah.
You got the left one. Nice. And how many errors in this sentence? It has 3. This one, and the logic, right? This sentence contains 3 errors. It's kind of like it's kind of like a paradox, because it contains 2 errors. But the third error is it's saying it contains 3 errors.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
That's it. That's it for our webinar.
All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending this webinar. It already took like 2 hours and 30 minutes of your time, but we really hope that you have learned so much during the discussion. And next time we will be inviting people from the audience. So if you'd like to be part of the discussion, to be part of the webinar, during the discussion, we will send an invite. So at least 3 to 4 from the audience can be part of the webinar yourself. So you can see yourself in the webinar mismo. So join us in the discussion next Friday. We are hoping that there will be more participants and more interactions next Friday. All right. See you soon.
See you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Rage.
Bye. Thanks, Prince.